The steroid conversation is broken. Half the internet thinks that they're just some magic shortcut, and the other half thinks that one injection is going to ruin your life. The truth is that both sides are missing the point. Today I'm breaking down the 5 biggest lies and misconceptions that people have about steroids, and by the end of this video, you'll probably realize that you might have believed at least one of them. Let's dive into it. The first misconception on this list, and probably the biggest misconception by far, is when people say that steroids do all the work. People think that, oh, if I inject testosterone, I'm gonna look like C-Bum the next day, or oh, I'm gonna look like Nick Walker or Larry Wheels. No, the reality is that is not gonna happen. For 99.99% of people, they just do not have the genetics for that. Now, yes, PEDs can and will increase your ability to recover and adapt in training. But what they will not do is replace genetics, diet, sleep. It's important to remember that there is plenty of people out there who use PEDs and they look completely normal or completely average to a lot of other people. So genetics and diet training and consistently play a huge role in determining how they will actually affect someone. For example, if we were to take a person that is 100% natural, but had their training, diet, and sleep and consistently all locked in and completely dialed in, versus somebody who's enhanced but is lackluster and half-asses it when they go to the gym, their diet might be shitty, their sleep might be shitty, I can almost guarantee you that the person who is natural but has all of the external factors locked in is going to make more gains and look significantly better than the person who is on steroids. That said, like I mentioned before, genetics do play a factor. There is people that can have a lackluster performance, but they are a hyper responder to steroids, so hence they will look a certain way compared to other people who put in the same amount of effort. But for a majority of people, that's not how it works. The second biggest misconception that I see is that it comes from 2 sides here on this one. It's 1, people say that steroids are either completely safe, or 2, people think that steroids are just going to kill you right when you inject them. The reality is, really neither of those are true. It's kind of meets somewhere in the middle. And this is really where the internet starts to kind of get polarized on these 2 different sides of the topic here. Because the one side is saying, oh, they're just like taking your vitamins every day, right? And then the other side says 1 cycle and you're dead, which obviously is not true for a vast majority of people unless you have some type of crazy allergic reaction or something of that matter. The truth is, if we're being realistic, 1 cycle is not gonna kill you. Like I said before, unless you have some crazy allergic reaction or something like that, 99.99% of people are going to be fine. That said, it becomes more of an addiction factor. When somebody takes a cycle for the first time, they love how they feel, they love how they look on it, and they love how they think on it. When those 3 factors are all aligned and they hop off or go into a cruise, they lose a lot of the mental and physiological effects and everything like that. And they start to be like, damn, I really miss that feeling. I want to do that again. So when people say 1 cycle and you're dead, I think a better way to put it is 1 cycle can lead to many more cycles, which can eventually kill you if you are not taking the proper protocols and understanding the risks that are involved with it. Because at the end of the day, different drugs carry different risks. If you were to compare something like testosterone to trenbolone, obviously trenbolone is significantly more damaging to your body and your brain than testosterone. And of course, the dosing paired with genetics also plays a factor. There are plenty of people out there who are hyper responders to this type of stuff, where they are able to take very small doses or much smaller amounts than most people and get a crazy amount of gains from it. And obviously, there are the serious side effects, the cardiovascular damage, the liver, the endocrine system, the mental health, all of this stuff plays into it. But at the end of the day, there really is no way of saying that steroids are completely safe, because they're not, but you also can't really argue that 1 pin and you're dead, right? So at the end of the day, people appreciate someone who avoids absolutes. The third biggest misconception I see about steroids is that everybody with a great physique is on steroids. Now this one is very, very controversial for a lot of people, and I would say the biggest factor in this is probably the fake natty epidemic, right? We have tons and tons and tons of people out there who claim natty, but many people out there argue that they are not. I'm not going to be listing specific examples because I don't need to get tied into any of that, but most of you guys have some people in mind. The most important thing to remember is that genetics do exist, and there are some people out there with 1 in a billion genetics who can be natural and quite literally look like they're enhanced. It almost seems unbelievable, but at the end of the day, genetics are probably the most important factor in bodybuilding as a whole. Because you have to remember, there are some enhanced guys out there that a lot of people would think they're enhanced, and again, it comes down to genetics. That's why it is so hard to really reliably determine if somebody is on PEDs or not just by appearance alone, because there are several other factors that play into it. People love to discuss fake natties, but focusing on the limits of certainty is much more credible than making accusations. The fourth biggest misconception that I see about steroids is that more drugs equals more muscle. This is one that I feel like not a lot of people talk about, but it is really misunderstood. You have to remember that up to a certain point, more drugs can equal more muscle, but with that being said, there is, I guess, a threshold, and more drugs also means more side effects. So you have to understand that that is a risk that you are going to have to be willing to take, especially bumping up some of your doses to extremely high amounts. Because realistically, bigger doses don't just produce unlimited gains. It's just not how it works. And at a certain point, chasing more can almost become sort of like a trap. You just want more and more and more of it because you want to look bigger and stronger and feel better. But at a certain point, you just can't go anymore without, one, health risks, and two, your body starts to adapt and the steroids almost get neutralized. So at a certain point, you bumping it higher is not giving you any more gains. All it's doing is creating more side effects for you. And at the end of the day, there comes a point when you're increasing the risk much faster than you're increasing the reward. The fifth and final biggest misconception that I see about steroids is that steroids are why pros look like pros. At the end of the day, yes, steroids definitely helped them, but it is extremely, extremely misunderstood. You have to understand that those guys literally have 1 in a billion genetics. When they have genetics paired with the training protocol, the diet, the nutrition, the discipline, the recovery, and yes, PEDs, they are going to be some of the biggest humans to ever walk on this earth. But there is a hell of a lot more to it than just PEDs in general. If you take away the foundation, the drugs alone are not going to create that level of physique. I mean, when you look at people like Jay Cutler, for example, when he was 16, 17 years old and fully natural, at least we believe, his physique was insane. It looked like he was enhanced. I mean, he was the size of some dudes who are in their mid-20s on PEDs. I mean, it just goes to show how far genetics can really take somebody's physique, regardless if they're enhanced or not. Because the reality is, steroids don't create champions. They amplify people who already have championship level genetics and work ethic. With that being said, that is the 5 biggest misconceptions that I have seen to this day about steroids, and I really hope that you guys were able to pick something up from it or maybe understand something a little bit better, because the reality is there is so many different misconceptions. This list could go on and on. I mean, I had 20 plus different things, and I tried to pick out the 5 biggest things that I see or being talked about on the internet. And you know, you just have to realize that at the end of the day, the biggest influencing factor on a majority of the steroids and steroid talk is going to be your genetics. And like I said earlier, that is a big reason why all the fake natty epidemic and everything like that is happening right now. So there really isn't a right nor wrong answer for these questions and these misconceptions, but it's just important to understand both sides of them and really understand how things work. Because at the end of the day, the truth about steroids is not on this end or the other. It's really just comes together in the middle, where you have to determine risk versus reward. Because hey, at the end of the day, who knows? Your favorite natty fitness influencer could be lying about PEDs.